All right, everyone, the first topic of the day is the MyHeritage data breach. Now, MyHeritage, it's like one of these other genealogical sites. You send in your DNA and they, I don't know, tell you your ancestry, and they do all sorts of work related to ancestry in general. They had a data breach, and hashed passwords and usernames and phone numbers and stuff were compromised. 92 million people have been affected by this particular data breach. Now, there's a reason that I never have and never will use a DNA service. If I did, if I ever sent in my DNA to find out, what race are they going to make up for me, basically, because I don't necessarily believe that these results are fully accurate in general. I would use a false name. I would literally use somebody else's identity. You send it in and it goes from their address. It's like they use their name, and then you pay your friend basically to get your DNA results for you. If you did this, of course, then it wouldn't be much of a problem. But the thing is, people are making the same mistake they did with Facebook, with these genealogical sites. That is, they are giving up large amounts of personal info for something that is considered cool and gimmicky, without thinking of the larger consequences of the potential misuse of their data. Now, you can assume that the company itself maybe doesn't misuse it, and they take security seriously, they don't care. I can see a future where it roughly mimics, though, what's happening with Facebook, which is Facebook takes user data and it sells it. Companies could look into genetics. They could end up turning to geneticists and say, okay, we need you to find genes that are associated with liking products like ours. Well, we need to target certain groups of people geographically. We need to find out the genetic composition of this group of people. Maybe this group of people is more likely to have some quirk in their taste buds that means that some part of our product might not be tasty to them or something. This sort of thing could happen. You're opening a can of worms that nobody is thinking about the larger ramifications of. It's just like Facebook and social media in general. It's like the robotics question. It's like the question of cloning. All of these things have huge moral and social implications that are totally glossed over until they become a problem. By the time they become a problem, that good or service is so commonplace that it almost becomes necessary to take part in order to do anything in the culture, like Facebook. If you don't have a Facebook account, it's kind of an odd status. Now, that's not maybe the case now. But for a long time there, if you weren't on Facebook, like employers, they wanted your Facebook password. Oh, we're going to make sure that you don't post any weird shit, basically. People get fired if they post the wrong thing on Facebook. People who don't have a cell phone, for example. I can remember a happier time when cell phones were as scarce as hen's teeth outside of a few big city areas. People used landlines. If you went out in the woods, you knew that you didn't need a cell phone. It's a ridiculous idea that you have to have one. I don't have one, really. I have a cheap-ass flip phone that I sporadically enable to actually have service because I don't have anyone to call or text because I fucking hate cell phones. And that makes me slightly odd. It makes me considered a Luddite by technological standards. And these genetic sites, I think, are the logical next step in the erosion of privacy, really. You are giving a private firm data that they can potentially sell. They are legally entitled to do so. It'll end up being just like Facebook. We now know that Facebook sold user data to a Chinese firm. It wasn't just US firms that got user data. They sold it to the Chinese. If you have sold that sort of data to a Chinese commercial outlet, trust me, the government either already has or can easily obtain all of that data. It's easy peasy 1, 2, 3 because they're a totalitarian state. They don't have the Fourth Amendment. So Americans' user data was put into servers in a country that doesn't have any right to privacy. And even if they did, of course, that applies within their own borders to their own citizens. It has nothing to do with American citizens. So Zuckerberg chuckles and smirks and sells people's data over and over again to keep making money because he's got data on hundreds and hundreds of millions of people. It's not all necessarily true. Some people very wisely early on realized that they should probably sprinkle a few lies in there with the truth about their actual identity. Maybe part of their name is spelled just a little differently. Their address is listed a little bit differently. The things that they like aren't quite the same in real life as they are in their Facebook persona. That's a wise decision to make. As far as the genetic stuff goes, therefore, if you want to get your genetic results, I strongly encourage you to use another person's identity to attain that material. I strongly recommend that people mix up the data, making it impossible for them to make it useful. At the very least, they can't then identify you necessarily with your genetic material. It is ridiculous that people are doing this because the genetic research doesn't even back up the fact that this is 100% accurate. For instance, I believe that one of these firms was screwing with people who were known to be like maybe white supremacists by inserting fake DNA results, saying, "Oh yeah, you're like 1% African or something." Now in reality, that's not true, but they owned up to it. They're like, yeah, we fucked with some racists. It was pretty funny. This sort of thing can happen. One person's having a bad day. Whoops, I accidentally said you were 10% Chinese. What do you know? Now, of course, the person's like, 100% of Norwegian extraction, but, their results say something different. I don't know why people even use these services. This is far more intrusive than something like Facebook. And we already see significant social problems with it. Look at that, what was that site for cheaters there? Was it Ashley Madison or whatever? They get hacked. And there were a bunch of people's identities exposed. And like, basically ruining millions of relationships. And it was all very funny. And it's like, well, if you're using a service that's literally about just cheating on your girlfriend or spouse or something, okay, maybe you deserve it. But at the same time, the Fourth Amendment's pretty ironclad. Generally, I err on the side of if nothing criminal is going on, people should have privacy. But they're willingly giving it up. You're giving your most essential genetic components to a private firm that is not constrained from sharing that data with the U.S. government for criminal purposes, sharing it with a foreign government, sharing it with another firm for ad purposes. And it will eventually happen. You watch, if 5-10 years down the road, they're not using genetics to try to target ads in some meaningful way, I would be surprised. The technology is basically already there. We make leaps and bounds in science, and it can do very good things, and it can be used for very bad things. It could be used to engineer a virus that kills off a population based on its genetic composition. Yes, you could probably accomplish that with today's technology. Doesn't that strike anyone as slightly concerning? And no, they give their genetic material willfully. You have a big debate over whether government can force you to give up genetic material. Like here, I think they reformed it so they could take it just after getting the warrant. They don't even have to prove guilt in a crime, and then they don't have to get rid of the genetic material, which is like totally moronic and against the Fourth Amendment. It would result, if they tried to do that to me, they're like, oh, Styx, you downloaded the wrong song, so you're going to jail for copyright. So I would definitely sue if I was found not guilty. I'm surprised. I don't think anyone has actually done that yet, which is, again, moronic. Maybe they get rid of it after you're found not guilty. I don't know. But still, you shouldn't be giving your genetics to a private firm. It's just not a good idea. Trust me. Having looked at social media and the problems there with people, I put my name and face and stuff, and now I get doxxed. Well, what if your genetic material gets leaked? What if they build a database of people's genetics and it accidentally ended up in some server in the UK or Germany or something? Now Merkel can build her army of supermen, totally trusted multicultural supermen based on people's genetic material. That's about all. Peace out.